When it comes to making video games, it's unusual to talk about suffering as a positive aspect of playing them. In fact, a lot of game design exists solely to remove as much pain from the experience as possible. Inclusions such as frequent checkpoints and forgiving difficulty curves are meant to keep the player engaged and prevent them from ever feeling confused or upset. And then there's Bennett Foddy, whose most successful games are all built on a common theme.
God damn it!
Frustration. Foddy is a game design professor at the NYU Game Center with a PhD in philosophy. He's been making games since the late 2000s, which include internet sensations like QWOP, GURP, and his most recent title, Getting Over It. Not only do Foddy's games forego game design conventions that make the player feel comfortable, but many of them go out of their way to provoke and even humiliate them. Whether it be through their awkward control schemes or unforgiving difficulty, many of Foddy's games are designed to frustrate or otherwise torment the player in some way. His sophomore game QWOP sees players struggling to move an Olympic runner by individually controlling each of their thighs and calves. While in Getting Over It, players drag themselves up a mountain using only a hammer, where one small mistake, one errant flick of the mouse, can cost hours of progress. Yet despite their punishing nature, Foddy's games continue to receive overwhelming praise because of how frustrating they are. And I think there's a simple answer to why that is. In the words of Foddy himself, feeling frustrated is underrated. We spend a lot of our lives actively avoiding negative emotions such as fear or sadness, and yet many of us also enjoy the experience of watching a scary movie or crying to a heart-wrenching ballad. There's value to be had in these otherwise undesirable emotions when they're experienced in a certain context, and video games are no different. Foddy grew up in Melbourne, Australia in the 1980s, a time when restrictive import laws and outdated television standards delayed the arrival of consoles like the Nintendo Entertainment System. And so while children in America grew up with Mario and Mega Man, Foddy had the ZX Spectrum and titles such as Jet Set Willy. These games are often direct adaptations of arcade cabinets, and as such, had the same uncompromising difficulty and disregard for fairness. Where losing all your lives in Super Mario Bros. Might set you back by only a few levels, a game over in Jet Set Willy meant losing everything and being forced to start from scratch.
Oof, sorry about that.
The Spectrum keyboard also notably lacked arrow keys, and most of its games had bizarre and unstandardized control schemes, something that would later lead Foddy to explore unorthodox controls in his own work. These games had what Bennett describes as a certain emotional flavor. Much like coffee, they had a bitterness that players either rejected or learned to enjoy the taste of. There was appreciation and even enjoyment to be had in the frustration itself, and it's influenced his approach to game design ever since.
And I think that's kind of led to a situation that we're in right now where it's very orthodox for game designers to be concerned with software design in the way that software designers are. And that has led to certain orthodoxies, like frustration is always bad. Confusion, if people are confused about what to do in a game, that's always bad. Any of these things that we would construct as sort of standing in the way of the function of a piece of software is deemed to be bad in game design. And yeah, I mean, I want to be able to express myself drawing from a full palette of human experience. I want to be able to use those feelings. I want to be able to explore what frustration is like. Maybe it's richer and more interesting than people have given it credit for.
Foddy's games don't just use frustration as a means of adding consequence to failure or to make victory feel like it actually matters. They actively explore the feeling of frustration for its own sake. It is the intended experience, and another instrument in a game designer's toolbox. And that's seen as strange in an industry where most developers are trying to eliminate player frustration at every opportunity. Games exist at a strange crossroads between software and art. On the one hand, art is often meant to provoke or challenge the viewer. It isn't always meant to be fun or enjoyable. Whereas anytime a piece of software challenges or frustrates the user, it's usually treated as an objective failure on the part of the designer. And much of the time, modern video games fall closer to the software side of this spectrum, where these pain points are identified and promptly removed. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with making a game that's pleasant to play, but at the same time, I think something is lost when a game always adheres to what the player wants or expects. The games can feel watered down and sterile. They lack those rough edges that make them feel personal. In the words of Bennett himself, a game that is completely devoid of frustration is likely to be a game without friction, without disobedience. Games that are perfectly obedient are mere software. In many ways, Fadi's games are the antithesis of what good design is. They're meant to be disobedient and harsh in the way that a lot of artistic work is. Yet despite how unforgiving a game like Getting Over It is to play, that same sense of hardship is what ultimately makes the experience of playing it feel more human. His games can be infuriating, yet they also have a playful quality to them. Frustration creates opportunities for the developers to more directly acknowledge the player and toy with their expectations, thus forming a closer connection between user and designer. You can notice this for yourself in Getting Over It, where Bennett's commentary gradually becomes more intimate the closer you get to the end. The bitter flavor of Fadi's games might not be for everybody, but I think it's important to have more people like him who are willing to go against the grain and explore aspects of game design that not many other developers are. His insights into frustration lends him a unique and surprisingly thoughtful approach to making games, and I'm both dreading and looking forward to whatever he decides to make next. Alright, thanks for coming with me on this trip. If you enjoyed the video, then you should probably subscribe because I'm planning on making more like it. Honestly, this one took way longer than I expected to finish, but I'm hoping there won't be as large of a gap between this video and the next one. See you then. Also have a Twitter that you can follow me at if you want to see me tweet stuff like this on occasion. Okay, bye.